So hopefully by now you've already completed your MLS Basic 101 and 102 classes. So you're already comfortable and familiar with the basics in Matrix, because this class just really takes everything to the next level. We go over a lot of things that we just don't have time to cover in the basic classes. So we'll just jump right in and get started. I'm just going to go ahead and click right here on Go to MLS. And one of the first things that we're going to do this morning is talk about when you're running your searches. Oftentimes you get those search results and you want to be able to customize your search results grid. So of course you would be going to search. We'll just go ahead and click on residential. I'll add just a small amount we will get our search results, and then when we see that we have our search results, we will go ahead and customize our results grid. Here we see down here we have 13 matches, and I'm going to go ahead and click on results. That will open up what is called the single line display. So that's what we're seeing here is the single line display. And this is the default results grid that you'll always see when you run any search in Matrix, regardless of the search form that you choose over here. When you come into the results grid, and hopefully in basic, of course, we covered all of the items that are in the grid. So today we want to really focus on how you can sort the grid and add additional columns to it. And keep in mind that you can set up multiple results displays and customize them depending on the type of search that you're running. What we have here is a single family home search. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here to the list price. You notice as I'm hovering over that list price text you see there, it turns an orange color. If I click on that one time, you notice it placed a drop down arrow in there. That means that my listings are being currently sorted by price from the least expensive listing to the most expensive listing. Let me change my number of search results. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 10 just to help you guys see this page hopefully a little bit better. I can click on that text, that orange text list price. I can click on it a second time and it changes the order into the opposite. So now you see the up arrow. Now we're looking at these listings from the most expensive listing to the least expensive listing. You can do this with several of the columns. For example, if I go over here to city, you see my font turns orange. If I click on city, now I have my search result sorted first by city in alphabetical order, but you'll notice that list price column, the results are sorted still from the most expensive listing to the least expensive listing, but now it's done based on the city. So here for Alva, we have the most expensive listing to the least expensive listing, but when we jump to Fort Myers, we get that most expensive listing again, and that sort order starts over again. You can do that if you wanted to do it, for example, by subdivision, you could choose to do that. If you are going to do this, make sure that you do the list price first and then the city. It's important to do that if you want it to come up exactly like I have it here, where it's first sorted by city, then by list price, even though you're actually sorting the list price column first. Another thing you can do, you'll notice I've got the scroll bar down here at the bottom. I can drag this over here and you'll notice that there are a few fields in here that are either not used at all, like of course sold price and sold date. These columns are never going to be populated when we're searching for active listings. These columns are only going to be populated when we're looking at sold listings. So while you might want to leave these columns in the results grid, if you want to customize a CMA results grid, in our search results grid for active listings, we can remove these columns. Now, to do that, I'm hovering over the column that I want to remove, and you'll see that my cursor changes from the arrow to that crosshair when I get to the position it needs to be in. Now, if I move over, you'll notice it goes to the text that turns orange, and that's not what I'm looking to do. I want to make sure I have that crosshair. Once I have the crosshair in the top portion of the column, I'm going to left click one time and select remove column. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for sold price. I'm going to go ahead and do that for sold date. You notice when I get to sold date, there's not a lot of extra room here, but if I just move my mouse just above the text, then I'll get that crosshair, left click, and remove that column. Now here we see some additional columns that always come up in this single line display, and this is going to be your realist property tax link. It'll take you to the tax records for each one of these listings, and then this would take us to the assessor map. Now these options are also available. Click on listing number and scroll down just a bit. So you see here, I've got that link to the realist property link, which just of course opens the tax records. And then I've also got a link to the assessor map. Now, if I scroll back to the top up here, I'm going to click on single line display. That's going to take me back to our results grid. So as I see here, these columns are redundant. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. Hovering and getting that crosshair, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that column, and we'll remove the assessor map column. And of course, the data co-op view, that's something you can choose to keep in there. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that column. I have an empty column here, going to go ahead and remove it as well. Now I'm left with only the columns that I want. Now let's just say, for example, we want to know if any of these listings have HOA fees, and we want to know how often that those fees would be paid. Now, with that said, I could have added over here on the criteria tab, if I click there, I could have added HOA fees to the additional fields and made that part of my search criteria. I could also have added the HOA fee frequency. But the reason I don't want to do that here is because it sometimes will limit what I would actually get for my search results in a way that might not be beneficial. So rather than adding that here, I'm going to go to that results screen, and I'm just going to hover right over the top. Now you can do this, you can hover over the top of any column that you want. I'm going to use the address just because there's a lot more room there. Now I'm going to left click, and this time I'm going to click on insert column. And because I want to add the HOA fees right down here where we see this search box, I'm going to begin to type HOA, and we see here it brought us to HOA fee, and I'm just going to highlight that and select apply. So here we have our HOA fees. The column dropped in right here, but I don't have to leave it here. I can actually hover over that column until I see my crosshair and left click and drag it. And in this case, I'm going to place it next to my list price. Now, I also want to know how often these fees are paid. So once again, I'm just going to hover over the address column, left click, insert column. And here in the search field, this time I'm going to begin to type HOA again. And this time I'm going to select HOA fee frequency and select apply. And here our frequency pulled in. Gonna get that crosshair, left click, and drag it over here next to the HOA fee. You'll notice when you select insert column, the columns that you have here match identically to all of the fields that are in the listing form. Every single field that's available in the listing input form is going to be available as a column. You can widen your columns out. You'll notice if I hover in between the two columns, I get that little separation with the arrows. I can click on that and drag just a bit, just hover just again and click and drag if I want to widen these columns out. So hopefully that helps you see that you can add columns, you can remove columns, you can sort the columns, you can even make them bigger or smaller. For example, the status column, we can hover there, get that separation icon, and then just left click and we can actually drag and make that smaller. Once we have all of the items sorted and configured the way we want for our custom display, we're going to click on this pencil and paper icon that you see right here that says, when you hover over it, it says Manage Display. And then I'm going to click on that. The text that will automatically populate there is going to say single line, but I'm just going to highlight that and delete it. And I can name this, for example, my single family home display. And then I want to click on Save as a Copy. In the future, when I run a search, the search will always default to the single line display that we saw when we first came into this listing. If I want to change my results to get my custom grid, then I can click on the arrow, as you see here, where it says single line, and then select the custom grid that I want to view and work with. Let's just say I'm clicking on Fort Myers for a saved search that I have. Going to pull in that single line display, even for a saved search that I have in my, whether I keep it in the My Matrix saved searches field or my favorite searches on my dashboard, it's going to default to that single line. But I can come in here and I can actually click on my custom view. And now you see that this is a saved search, but because I changed it over to that custom view, now I have my HOA fees and the frequency pulled in. You can do this with condos, for example. If you want to separate your condo searches from your single family home searches so that you don't have to add condo fees and condo fee frequency and just have so many columns here. Instead, you can run a search for condos, and then when you insert that column, this time you're going to be searching for condo fees. So as I begin to type condo, we see condo fee, and of course we would just apply, and I'm not going to do that here. I didn't actually need to do that. I'm going to remove that column. But once you did that, then of course you can go back to Manage Display and you can save that as your condo display. So now you have condo fees, condo fee frequency, and that's going to be separated from your single family home search. And the only reason you would really want to do that is just because otherwise you would just have so many columns here. It would be really difficult to view. You'll notice there's going to be an arrow in the top right hand corner of the screen right next to your name. You'll click on that arrow and you're going to select Settings. Once you select Settings, you want to go to Custom Displays. And this is where it's the easiest place to actually manage the custom displays that you have set up. So you can simply highlight the display that you want to work with and click Edit. You'll notice right here at the top, you have the different search forms. So we were just working with the residential search. You can set up your custom display grid for each one of your search forms. And then you can come here to manage them. So here, we've got the single family home display. If I click edit, that's going to open this box where I can see a list of all of the columns that are available to add. And again, all of the available columns are going to be matched up with all of the fields that are available in the listing input form. So when you're entering those listings into the MLS, you're adding this information in, and these search columns will correspond with that data that's in the listing form. So from here, you could click on whatever information that you would want to add. So let's just say, for example, when you have an HOA or a condo, you will also have an application fee, and you might want to know about that in your search results grid. So I can highlight application fee and I can click add, and that pulls that application fee right into my selected columns. Now I can also move it. Once it pulls it in, it's just going to pull it in any old place, but I can highlight that field that I've brought in and I can move it. So I'm going to move this down and I'm going to place it right next to HOA fee frequency. I'll show you in just a moment. When we go back to that results grid, we can see not only the HOA fee and the frequency, but if there is an application fee. And of course, any other fees that you would want to add that you might want to be able to see in your results grid. Once you're all done, you're going to click save. And now if we go back to, and I'll just use one of my saved searches as an example, because they're search results, whether it's a saved search or whether I run a new search. So if I go back to one of these saved searches, now if I click on my single family home display, we see that our application fee was pulled in, and some of these do indeed have application fees. So that's how you would want to go about managing, because you will find as you go along. That's especially helpful when you're saving the search as a concierge email. You've got just the regular scheduled auto email that goes out automatically, but you also have the concierge email, which actually sends you an alert when new listings come on the market that match those search results. And then you pick and choose which of those listings you want to send out to your client. So having these additional fields is going to be especially beneficial when you're using that concierge email for your customers. Now I'm going to go back to my matrix and my dashboard, and we're going to talk about customizing Market Watch. Market Watch, and keep in mind, your Market Watch on your dashboard may not be in the same place as mine, because as you'll recall, you can move these widgets, as we call them, you can move them around on your dashboard. So yours might not be in the same place as mine. But we're going to talk about Market Watch. Now, Market Watch, the purpose of it is to be a very broad overview of what's going on in your market area. The system default is set to look at all of the listings in our entire MLS coverage area. That coverage area includes Lee County from, for example, Cape Coral, all the way down the West Coast into the Marco Island area. Our MLS shares data with Bonita Estero Association and also the Naples Board. Now, Marco Island and Captiva, for example, they have separate associations and they don't necessarily share data with us. But with that being said, a lot of times those agents will belong to multiple associations. So maybe their primary association is Marco or Captiva, but they also belong to Royal Palm Coast or maybe Naples. With that being the case, they're entering their listings in both databases. Now, that's not going to be true for every single agent, but it is true for a great deal of them. So for that reason, we can really call that coverage area from Cape Coral all the way down into the Marco Island area. So again, what you're seeing here is going to be the default setting, which includes that entire area. Each one of these items here, we see new listings, sold, rented. Each one of these is a hyperlink that when I click on it, it's going to take and show me those listings. There were 102. Now, if I go back to my matrix and dashboard again, there's 98 listings. If I click refresh, now I see that there are 102. The reason for that is because I actually logged into Matrix at about 8 o'clock this morning. And so 4 additional listings have been entered into the MLS since I logged into Matrix. So for you guys, when you're working in Matrix, and maybe you've been in here for a while, you see these numbers, go ahead and click the refresh button right down here in the bottom of the widget, and then you'll see these numbers change a little bit. So just since 8 o'clock, we added 4 additional listings, and I didn't pay any attention to see if any of the listings for sold had changed. But again, these are hyperlinks, so I can click on sold and it's going to show me those sold listings. Now going back to my matrix and selecting dashboard, I have mine set up to look at residential listings. You could choose to look at residential income listings, residential rental listings, vacant land, commercial listings, or boat docks. Or you could select cross property. Cross property is simply a term we use that includes all of these above property types. So cross property just means you're going to pull every available property type that you see here. In addition to determining the type of property you want MarketWatch to keep an eye on, you can choose the amount of time you want to pull those in, those changes, updates, if you will. How often or what time frame you want it to look at. So in this case, I always keep mine set on 24 hours. If I chose today, that would be any changes that took place in the database from midnight all the way up until the time I log into Matrix. Or if I click refresh, then of course it will refresh it from midnight up until the time I click the refresh button. I could also set it to look at the new listings, sold listings, terminated, and so on for the last 3 days or the last 7 days. But again, I'm going to keep mine set to 24 hours. Now, you're not stuck with this geography, which is the default geography for the entire MLS coverage area. You can click customize in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and it's going to take you into a search form. This is similar. It will remind you of the search form that you use when you're searching for listings, but it's a little bit different. And you can make any selections that you want to make here. With that being said, because of the purpose of MarketWatch being that very broad overview of what's going on in the market area, my recommendation is to only set the geography, the area that you want it to look at. So again, the default is to look at the entire coverage area, or you can set it up to look at a specific area that you consider to be your market area. Now you can do that in the same way you would enter your geography if you were searching for listings for a buyer. You can add it by city or condo name or geo area, or you can use these quick links. Or you can click on map search. I'm just going to make this bigger so you guys can see it better. If we click on map search, then we can actually use our map tools to draw our area. So I'm just going to zoom out on the map just a little bit. And this kind of shows you our coverage area, right? From all of this area, North Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lee County, really, because Charlotte County changes over to a different association. But I can use my rectangle, I can use radius, or I could use a polygon. So if I click on that rectangle, for example, I could make my market area like that. I can make it smaller, so you can drag it out. So you can choose whatever area you want. Now I've selected my area using the map. I'm going to click OK down here at the bottom right-hand corner. And then I'm going to click Save, the bottom left-hand corner. And you see my numbers have changed quite dramatically. 63 new listings, 69 sold listings, got withdrawn, price decreases, price increases. And again, each one of these are going to be links. I can click on those and I can check out those changes that have taken place in the MLS in my custom market area over the last 24 hours. And in this case, for residential listings. At any time, I can come in here and click refresh, and it's going to refresh the numbers for my market area. If I click reset, it's going to take me back to the system default settings. So once you've set your market watch area for what you consider to be your area, at any time, you simply click on reset. It'll be in the bottom right-hand corner, just like you saw a moment ago, and it takes you right back to the entire MLS coverage area. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be hot sheets. Hot sheets is similar to Market Watch. However, by contrast to that broad overview of what's going on in the market area, hot sheets lets you drill down on some very specific types of changes in your market area. So instead of focusing on a particular status change type like you see over here in Market Watch, hot sheets will give you a master list of all the status changes for up to 10 of your market areas. Now you can keep 10 sheets, 10 hot sheets in your hot sheets widget. The ones that you see in the system, automatically, the default are going to be each one of the property types. But you can customize these sheets. So just like in Market Watch, you can select the time frame and then you would click customize. First of all, let's talk about editing. If you want to edit one of the hot sheets that's already here, you simply click on edit criteria, and then you would make your selections, anything that you want to add. So on this particular one, you can see that I had already put in that I wanted the residential sheet to look for new listings, expired listings, and back on market listings. For single family homes and villas. And I chose my geography. If we look at that pick list, you can see I chose my geography here. Instead of using the map, I actually chose it using the pick list right here. And I even put a price in. So while I don't recommend that for Market Watch, it's a great thing to do for your hot sheets. This can help you find listings. For example, if you've got an investor that's looking for a specific price range in a specific neighborhood, and you want to see if prices have decreased on listings in those areas, if you want to see if a listing was terminated in that area, or if it went back on market, anything you see up here. And you want to keep an eye on those for an investor, and that's just one example Or maybe you've got an investor that would be interested in looking at short sales or foreclosures. You could even add that criteria. But I'm just going to leave what I have here and click Save. And then I'm going to select Done. And then when I come in here and I click on Residential, then it's going to show me the results based on that search criteria. And again, these are the changes that have taken place in the MLS over the last 24 hours, because that's what I got my hot sheets set to. Sometimes you might click on a hot sheet, and let's just go back to the dashboard. Sometimes you might click on a hot sheet and there might not be anything listed in that hot sheet. For example, there's only 2 listings there for boat docks. Now, when that happens, again, I'm going back to the dashboard. When that happens, you might want to come in here and change the time period that you're looking at. It just really depends on how often you're in Matrix, how much time you spend in Matrix. That's going to sort of determine how you want to set the time frame for your hot sheets. So again, it just really allows you to drill down. I'm going to go ahead and click on Customize one more time. It allows you to really drill down on very specific searches. And again, you know, that's going to be, you know, maybe you do investing yourself. Maybe you are working with an investor, or maybe there's a certain type of buyer that you work with frequently. So you can set those hot sheets up to match those things that are really important to you, that fit your niche in the market. When you add a brand new hot sheet, it's not going to have any criteria in it at all. So you will want to add that hot sheet. For example, and save. And then you want to click on Edit Criteria, because as you can see, there's nothing here. It doesn't know what to search for until you come in and add that criteria. And don't forget to click Save once you've done that. I'm going to click Cancel, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one and select OK. And you notice here, at any time, you can come in and restore system defaults, which will simply leave you various property types. And then you can start over. And again, up to 10 hot sheets can be managed in the hot sheets widget. When you're all done, you'll select Done. Now we're going to talk about team settings. Team settings are very important if you're working with a team. Even if you're not working with a team, if you ever want to go on vacation or just take some time off, maybe you get sick and you need someone to have access to your Matrix account, you'll need to set that person up in team settings. As you'll recall from your compliance class, it is never okay to share your password for the MLS. There is an automatic fine when you get caught sharing your password. Automatic fine, and that fine for multiple offenses can be as high as $15,000. Now we have software that runs in the background. It uses IP addresses, it uses location. Let's just say you have an unlicensed assistant and you want that person to have access to your MLS. They need to have their own MLS ID number. They can join the association. You can provide their membership for them if they're an employee of yours to the association. It is at a reduced fee for unlicensed assistants. So in order to set up team settings, you'll locate that arrow next to your name. You'll go ahead and click on settings, and then you'll find team settings on the settings page. I'm going to click there, and you'll notice here I have Jeff. He is our director of MLS. He's actually set up to utilize my account. Now, if I did not have Jeff here, what I would see here instead of this would be click on the link to set up the team setting feature. Then you will see the screen similar to this without the name yet. That would just say add. You would click on add, and you would enter the MLS ID number of the person that you want to give access to your MLS account. So you only need their MLS ID number. When you enter that number, then just click find. Once you do that, you will be met with a choice. You'll have a choice to add that person to impersonate you, or you can add them to work on your behalf. There is only one difference. If you allow your team member to impersonate you and they send an email to a client from your account, it will appear as if that email came directly from you. However, if you choose to allow your team member to work on your behalf and they send an email from your MLS account, it will show that that listing came from that individual, but it was sent on your behalf. Work on your behalf or impersonate you. And keep in mind, whoever you add, they have unlimited access to your Matrix account. They can actually use team settings, come in and work on your behalf or impersonate you, and then put a list. If you ever want to delete that person, you simply click in the box next to their name here and select delete, and it will remove them. Now, you can only give access to your account, but you can't take it. So just because you give access, for example, I gave access to Jeff. Jeff has access to my account, but I had to ask Jeff to give me access to his account, because then he has to go in, your team member has to go in and do this same process to add you to their account. They'll need your MLS ID number. They'll click find. They'll choose whether you are to impersonate them or work on your behalf. Once you've got that all set up and you have your team settings in place, you can come in. You see up here now it says, instead of just my name, it's got working as Sharon Crawford. That's me, right? But if I click on my name, you see here, I can switch to Jeff's account because he added me to his team settings. So now I'm in Jeff's account. I can go back up here in the top right-hand corner and I can click on his name and I can switch back to my account. So now I'm working as myself again. So we'll go and talk about stats. I am going to hover my mouse right here over stats, and I'm going to click on residential. You'll notice when you come into the screen, you've got a presets tab and a customize tab. So you'll see here the system has presets. So you would just click a preset static link. For example, you just want to make that selection, click generate, and it'll pull those stats up for you. Now, when those stats come in, you'll see them in the form of a graph, and this is just a system default. What we're seeing here is historic sales price range for the last 3 years. I can switch this view. Some people aren't big on graphs. If you click on the data tab, you can actually see the hard numbers. So I'm more of a hard number person than a graph person, but some people do like the charts. You can actually use the charts. I'll show you in just a moment. I'll go back over there. But before I do that, I want to show you here in data, you can export the search results from any of those preset stats you can export those results into a CSV file, which is going to be compatible with Excel. And so it'll just take it right into a spreadsheet for you. You can print the graph. You can email the graph. If I go back over here to data, you'll notice either way I can print or I can email. But it's going to send my customer, for example, if I'm on the data tab and I go to print, it's going to print what we see here. If I email, it's going to email what we see here. If I'm on the chart tab, it's going to print the chart, or it's going to email the chart. Also have the ability to customize. Now I could save this if I wanted to. I can save it. There's really no reason to, because it's already a preset. But you'll notice that save button is lit up now, and just a moment ago it was not. But if you don't see what you want here in the presets, you can customize your stats and you can actually save it as a preset. So you see here, I have Fort Myers single family homes, cumulative days on market versus inventory. So that is a customized stat that I ran, and then I saved it. And when I save it, it's going to be found here in my presets. So in order to customize your stats, you just go to that customize tab. You'll select the time frame. Now I can look at, for example, the past 12 months, and regardless of what month it is, I would still be able to save it, because while it's going to look at the past month and we're in January, if I look at it in, or if we're in December, if I look at it in January, it's going to pull the past 12 months based on January. Now, once I select my time frame, I'm going to select the stat that I want to look at. So you have the variety, you have the list you see here. You can choose to look at whatever you want to look at. I am going to select to look at the sale price average, and then I can choose what type of chart. And you see over here, this is the last chart that we used. I'm going to go back to that search screen because I'm going to be needing it here in just a moment, but I can select the type of graph that I want if I'm going to be using a graph. So you're just going to need to kind of come in here and play with the different choices, just because we don't have time to show them all to you. But I'll just leave it on column for now. Then I'll choose my secondary stat, and for my secondary stat, I'm going to choose the list price average. So we're going to be looking at the list price compared to the sale price. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a column also. And then I can choose how I want to group them. So because I'm pulling them in based on a monthly time frame, I'm going to choose to group them by month. I've got style options, and this is related to the graph. So I can click on that. I can select the color palette that I want to use. You can play around again. You can play around with these. For the fill style, you've got cylinder and embossed or a wedge. Just gives you, the different types of looks for aesthetics for your graph. You can choose whether or not you want it to display the values or show 3D chart style. You can make any of these selections, and again, we don't have time to demo all of them, but you can make whatever selections you like and come in here and just kind of play around with that. Now, the other thing I want to go ahead and do here is I want to select an area. I want to select a location. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all Lehigh Acres. Now you can do it any way you want. And I'm also going to choose to go ahead and just look at single family homes. Now you don't have to do that. If you don't choose anything here, it's going to pull everything in. So you would see condos and single family homes and the whole bit. But I would probably want to run that separately and see what the difference would be if there is one, percentage-wise, in the list price to sold price ratio between single-family homes and condos. But I can choose single-family homes. I could add villas to that if I wanted to. You can add any of these criteria that you want. I usually try to keep it simple just so it really pulls in a true picture of what it is I'm looking to gauge. And now I can clear my results over here, but I'm going to go ahead and click generate. And I chose those chocolate tones, maybe not the best choice there, but again, you can play around with that. But we're looking at the past 12 months. I chose to sort it by month. So we see January through December down here. And then we see list price to sell price, averages. Now, if you like charts, that's great and fine, and you can print that or you can email it. I like to see the numbers, so I can go to that data tab, and then I can see those hard numbers. The sale price was back in January. The average sale price was $215, while the average list price was $234. And then here in December, which we're only just a few days into the month, so that's not a very good gauge, but you see the actual sale price is above the list price. And then I've still got the option to export that into that CSV file, which would open in Excel. And then I can also save this. So if I click save, I can save it as a preset, list price, sale price ratio, and I can click save a copy, which would save a copy of this actual report that I just ran. Or if I click save, I'm saving it as a preset, and it will pull in here. What I want to do is move on to reverse prospecting. What is reverse prospecting? Let's take a look at that. I'll bring that presentation back up and go back to this screen. First of all, how do you get to reverse prospecting? So when you're in Matrix, you're going to go to that My Matrix menu, and this time you're going to select My Listings. Once you get into the My Listings screen, you'll see the drop-down arrow, because you might have something different in this show field that you see right here. There might be something different here. So when you're going to do your reverse prospecting, excuse me, didn't mean to click that. You want to be sure to click on My Active Listings. Once you click on My Active Listings, you'll see a list of all of your active listings here. To reverse prospect, you want to place a check mark in the box next to the listing that you want to work with. Once you do that, this bottom bar will light up with all of the options that you have. And you, of course, would select reverse prospecting. When you open that next screen, or when that next screen opens, you are going to see a screen like this one. And you will see, for example, right here in the first column, you've got the agent's name. So this is the agent that has sent an email. It could be a one-time email, it could be an automatic email, but they have sent this listing to one or more of their contacts. And here we see a specific reference number. So this is Kayla's customer's reference number. The listing agent cannot see any information for Kayla's client, only the reference number. But she can also see when the listing was sent to this customer and the fact that the customer saved the listing as a favorite. It gives the listing agent the opportunity to click on Kayla's email address. That will open your default email system, and you can shoot off an email to Kayla and say, hey, Kayla, I see that you have a customer that saved my listing as a favorite. Would you like some more information, or would you like to set up a time to show the listing? So you can see how that would be beneficial. The count that you see here, the count indicates the number of listings returned in Kayla's, in this case, Kayla's search results. So the number of listings returned in a search where the selected listing matched the search criteria for the listing agent's listing for this particular listing in this case. So we're just looking at a single listing. This is the listing number right up here. If we go back a screen, you'll remember we clicked on from my active listings, we selected the listing. Now we could go back and we could edit the listing from this screen. We could manage the listing's photos. We could add supplements to the listing. We're going to talk about sharing it in just a moment, but we're looking at reverse prospecting. And this is that page that you will see when you click on reverse prospecting, and it just allows the listing agent to see the activity. Those agents that have a client that saved the listing as a favorite, the light bulb indicates that it was saved as a possibility. If you don't see a favorite or a possibility, it simply means that your listing went out in an email. It was included in an email that went out by the corresponding agent. So for example, down here, Angelica sent this listing along with 2 others because the total count is 3. So she sent this listing out with 2 additional listings to her client that has this reference number. Here's a big one. Tom has obviously an auto email set up. This was probably the first auto email that went out to this particular contact, because there were 141 listings sent to this referenced contact, and that referenced contact saved this listing as a possibility. You also have the ability from that screen to share the listing. So again, you would just come into My Matrix, select Listings, then select My Active Listings, select the listing that you want to share by placing a check mark in the box and clicking Share. That will open this screen where you'll be given a hyperlink. You can highlight and copy this hyperlink and paste it into social media. You can paste it into a website. You could paste it into a landing page. You could paste it into an email signature. You can paste it anywhere where you want people to be able to access your listing. You can paste it into Instagram, right? So you can share the listing on the internet using that URL that you will get once you click share. You'll notice there's a little chain link where it says share, and then it opens the box that gives you the link that you can share online. The next item we're going to talk about is hit counters. So once again, when you're in Matrix, you're going to My Matrix and selecting My Listings. This time in the drop down, you're selecting My Hit Counters. Once you've done that, you will see a screen appear that looks just exactly like this one. A lot of information here. Of course, the basic information about the listing. But we've got a lot of information here. So first of all, we've got client portals. This is the number of portals that your listing has reached by a one-time or an auto email. So this listing went out in 78 client portals. Then client views. So of those 78 portals that it went to, 25 actually viewed the listing. One saved it as a favorite, one saved it as a possibility. Your listing went out in 79 auto emails. So there's a difference in these numbers, and that's because not everybody that gets the auto email opens it, right? So here we have a situation where it went out in 79 auto emails, but only 78 of those 79 people opened that email. How many views that particular listing got in the last 14 days? How many agents published the listing? And published means in concierge mode. So rather than setting up the auto email that goes out automatically, published means they set up a concierge email and they selected it to send to their customer in concierge mode. Rejected means they were setting up a concierge email and the listing was rejected 6 times. Agent IDX views is the number of times the listing was viewed publicly from IDX on other agents' websites. And agent views, finally, down here at the very end, agent views is the number of times this particular listing was viewed by an agent in the matrix system. So 820 times. Now, this is for each one of your listings. You can see your hit counter. An option that you have when you're looking at your hit counters is you can click here to run this as a full search. Why would you want to do that? Running your listings, these are your active listings, running your listings as a search allows for all of the same functionality with the listings that you would have if you were running a search for a buyer. So it allows you to set up that auto email. It allows you to get directions in between the listings. And these are your own listings. You're the listing agent, right? It allows you to print them, email them, look at a quick CMA of them, whatever you want to do there. But it gives you, when you run it, and I'll go back again, you'll see that option when you're looking at your hit counters to run as a full search. And again, the only reason you want to do that is because it gives you that full functionality as if you just ran a search, any other search, and these were your results. You can do any of the same things with these listings now that you would do if you were searching for any other listing in the MLS.